What's up YouTube? Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's Tahmid back here with another video. Now I felt the need to make this video for mainly friends and family. A lot of them look at different investment options and oftentimes it's very confusing, all the options out there. And they want an easy way to get access to halal investments. And being in North America, particularly Canada, the halal investment market isn't that developed yet. So to make your lives easier, I've done a bit of research and come together with sort of my top 3 options for halal investments in Canada as of 2021. So let's get right into it. Number 1 is Wealthsimple Halal Portfolio. If you watch my videos, which I hope you do, and if you aren't subscribed yet, please smash that subscribe button down below. Please. You will know by now that I'm a big advocate for Wealthsimple, especially because it has made investments so easy and accessible for the masses. And part of that accessibility drive is of course having a halal option for all the Muslims in Canada. And Wealthsimple, if you don't know, the background is they're robo-advisors, so it uses artificial intelligence to pick stocks and funds and bonds and whatever for people. Now, so you don't have to. I took a close look at their halal portfolio and the main holdings, and being a robo-advisor, you just contribute whatever amount monthly, be it $50 or $50,000, and the computers decide on how to allocate that money based on your risk tolerance. Obviously, you can go to their website and find out more about them. None of the investments here are sponsored. I'm not getting paid to tell you to go use these investments, neither do I have an interest in doing so. In fact, I don't even use any of these particular investment vehicles, and the reason for that is I started investing relatively young in the stock market, and I've had time and a bit of knowledge and experience to build a portfolio from scratch. So for me, it personally doesn't make too much sense to use them, but for the average Muslim in Canada who wants to get started investing, who are looking for an easy way to get started and have access to halal investments, these are all top tier options from what I've researched, from what I've heard from first-hand accounts of close friends and family who use these. So I thought I'd throw that disclaimer out there. And I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people, I've read this in online forums, a lot of people who aren't Muslim are actually using the Wealthsimple Halal portfolio. Part of the reason is that this portfolio has no bonds in it. Of course, in Islam, investments that bear interest on it directly are haram, so bonds hence are haram. And some people don't want exposure to bonds because they're boring and slow moving and not as exciting and as much fluctuations as stocks. And as they say in finance, the lower the risk, the lower the returns. So those who want full exposure to stocks, equities is another word for them instead, they actually prefer the halal portfolio. Now you can look through the marketing material, but I'm looking here, and Wealthsimple makes clear that this halal portfolio is actually vetted by a third-party committee of Sharia scholars, and they say that they do not in this portfolio invest in companies that deal with tobacco, that deal with gambling and arms, which is like weapons for war that kill people, and other restricted industries, whatever those are. And as you would expect, they clarify that none of these businesses derive significant income from interest on loans. So the keyword is significant. It's highly debated what the number should be, and as you know, I'm not going to opine on that because they're Sharia scholars who have gave them the green light to do this. But the key here is probably in a portfolio like this, you won't see the banks. Another reason I think that non-Muslims and the general public prefers this portfolio is this trend called ESG. If you haven't heard about it in the investment sort of financial world, there's a big movement to find environmentally friendly, governance and socially friendly sort of investments that are aware, that is conscious of the things they do, that promote, equity, that promote equality and fair opportunities. And of course, the halal portfolio plays into this new ESG theme. And depending on your risk tolerance that you put onto Wealthsimple, your halal portfolio will be a mix of sort of global stocks or equities as it's called. Part of it will be gold and part of it will be just cash And they make sure to tell you this is non-interest bearing cash, so obviously you don't want to collect interest on that. And I'm sort of just playing around with their scale. If you're super conservative and low risk, 40% of it will be stocks, 15% gold, and 45% just purely cash. And for young people, most of my audience is very young, I would just go straight to the high growth, high risk, because you have time to take risk as it works. 90% of your halal portfolio will be global stocks, 10% will be gold, and none of it will be in cash. There's also other perks and benefits of using a mass service like Wealthsimple, which is well established. Last I heard, Drake had invested millions of dollars into this company, and one of those benefits is you can pick a registered account, RRSP, or even better, the TFSA, and this way you get sheltered from the tax man or woman. If you don't know what any of these acronyms mean, it's probably better for you to have a look under my channel and watch some of the Money Talks episodes where I go over the basics of personal finance. And the other main advantage of Wealthsimple, using the WSHR, which is the Wealthsimple Sharia World Equity Index ETF. It's just a fancy way of saying a whole basket of stocks put together for the purpose of being Sharia compliant. And for this fund, they charge you a management fee of 0.5%, which is much lower than your typical mutual funds where the annual fees can be up to 2% or even 3% sometimes. Now for you, I took a look at the anatomy of this particular WSHR index fund and how it was constructed, just to get a sense of how it is. The total 1 unit of the fund right now, the day I looked at, was $26.89 Canadian. And by industry weight, it mainly had a good balance of, well, it's really well balanced overall actually, looking at it, but the main sectors is consumer staples, so things people buy every day, from toothbrushes to, laundry detergent. Then there's just as close, 13.8% compared to 13.9% were industrials, so the factories, warehouses, and all the production based related to that sector. And close to that, there was a 12.6% and a 12.4% distribution in healthcare and materials companies. So it's a good mix with financials, as you would assume, because of interest bearing businesses. Financials were at the very bottom with only a holding of 2.7%. Energy and utilities, which are common in a lot of portfolios, and even real estate, also had a lower portion compared to the other sectors. In terms of geography, the fund was about 1/3 based in United States, and surprisingly, second and third place in terms of holding of the companies. I think they measured this by headquarters. Second was Japan, and then Switzerland. And of course, it's globally very diversified. Wealthsimple makes clear that this is a very global equity funds of sort. Now, the juicy part, if you look at the top company, that if you get the WSHR fund, you get exposure to Nestle, Hong Kong and China Gas, and CLP Holdings. Those are the top 3, but there's all types of other names that I recognize here. There's McDonald's Japan, there's Waste Connections, which is a big deal in the province and the city I live in Canada. They sort of haul everyone's garbage and recycling on garbage day. But yes, it's very diversified, to use that word, in terms of geographies, in terms of sectors, and it has good exposure to both developed and developing economies, in my opinion. So overall, I think I like what I see with this sort of option of Wealthsimple and their halal portfolio. So it's time to move on to option number 2 for halal investments in Canada 2021. Monsil halal portfolios. Now Monsil, cool story, I actually saw their booth a few years ago at this huge Islamic conference, probably the biggest in North America. It happens in sort of my home city of Toronto, and it's called Reviving Islamic Spirit, if some of you are wondering. And they had a booth there like a lot of these other, Muslim-led, Muslim-oriented businesses. And as someone who was really fascinated in finance and investments, I was kind of drawn to their booth, and I really thought their marketing was pretty nifty. It was pretty cool, nicely done, nicely designed. So how Monsil sort of operates, it's not too dissimilar to Wealthsimple, especially when it comes to the halal portfolio. They've sort of built it out in partnership with CIX, which is a big corporation, which deals in sort of investment management, wealth management in Canada and USA. And what Monsil did is built a partnership with CI and CI Direct, which is also a robo-advisor similar to Wealthsimple. And it's all very intuitive. It's through your cell phone. You pick your investment preference, risk type, and they do the rest of the heavy lifting for you. And also similar to Wealthsimple's halal portfolio, Monsil makes sure to tell you that it is Sharia compliant. They have a board of governors of Sharia scholars who make the decisions and pick sort of the halalifications or the halalability, it's not a word, of the picked investments. Where Monsil is a little bit interesting is it sort of merges its equity, which is a fancy word for stocks once again, its stock fund along with an income fund. Now, the income fund mainly relies on real estate and real estate investments, and in the words of Monsil, they invest in real estate to provide Muslims across Canada with halal home financing. And sort of the ratio or the percentage that you get in stocks versus what you get in the real estate fund depends largely on your risk tolerance. If you're really risk averse, meaning you don't like taking risk, or you're older in age, closer to retirement, so it doesn't make sense for you to take a lot of risk, and you go with the income sort of portfolio, they'll put 100%, all of your money that you're contributing into the robo-advisor towards the Monsil sort of halal income fund, which is real estate mortgage oriented. On the flip end, once again, what I would recommend for young people like myself is the growth portfolio, which is high risk, high reward, inshallah. And for this, it's almost the opposite, where only 25% or 1/4 of your money is put towards income in the halal real estate and mortgage portfolio, and 75% is put into stocks or the equity fund. And what Monsil does is sort of they're the middle person. They're just connecting you with different companies and different services and making the process easy for you. For their stocks or the equity fund, they use something called the HLAL, so halal spelled without the A after the H. It's the ETF, another exchange traded fund. This is the Waheeds, another company which in the US particularly, which specializes in making halal equity funds. And this HLAL, that's the ticker fund, is listed on the NASDAQ and American Stock Exchange. So if you try to buy it yourself, just the HLAL fund alone, you could do that. Of course, be careful of the conversion exchange rate fees of flipping from Canadian dollars to US dollars. So this fund, the HLAL fund, it also has a very low management expense ratio, which is the fee you pay for holding the fund. And this fee is very important because it's an annual fee, and that means anything annual is compounded over time, and you don't want it eating up into your returns. Similar to Wealthsimple's halal portfolio, for this particular HLAL equity fund, the management expense ratio is also 0.5%, so 0.50%. The fund came into inception not too long ago. It started about, I think, July 2019. Since then, stock markets, barring the crash in March 2020, have been going up. So this fund has been doing well as well. I took a close look at the holdings and the different companies that's held in sort of this Waheeds equity fund, ticker HLAL once more. And the biggest holding by far seems to be Apple Technologies, and I'm sure you're familiar with Apple, the phone, laptop maker, and different technological products as well. The second and third biggest happen to be Adobe System. You might use the PDF reader and these other suite of services of Adobe. And the third biggest seems to be right now Danaher, which sort of is this conglomerate which does industrial goods and manufacturing. So it is a relatively new fund, equity fund that follows Sharia compliance standards, and it has a long road to go and a lot to prove in terms of performance. It is definitely too early to tell, but I do like how, Monsil, obviously the marketing and everything is great, but I do like how the company gives you, if you want, exposure to real estate and equities, stocks at the same time, which is pretty cool. So yes, for whatever reason, if you don't like Wealthsimple, the Monsil Halal portfolio is a somewhat similar option. Number 3, Planet Life Halal Housing Sukuk Bonds. Now I know that's a big name and you might be wondering what on earth that is. I thought I would include this one because it gives you direct exposure to real estate and the housing market in the GTA, Greater Toronto Area. Now if you live in Toronto or anywhere in Canada for that matter, particularly the big cities, you will know that housing and housing affordability is such a huge issue. The Sukuk bond model sorts of pulls crowdfunding. It's like crowdfunding where it pulls money from different individual investors and puts it towards a project, and depending on how much you invest, you have that much share in that real estate project. And to be Sharia compliant, the simple gist of it is you need to have an asset-backed bond, and the asset in this case is the housing or the housing facility that's being built with all the investors' money. They mainly build projects in the Durham region, which is east of Toronto, and some of the offerings right now I'm looking at, they do require a minimum initial investments of $25,000, which is much higher than if you would have invested in the Monsil sort of robo-advisor or even the Wealthsimple robo-advisor halal portfolios. But the great thing is it's sort of a fixed income, a return of 9% on your money annually if you choose to reinvest your investments, or DRIP it, which is the acronym. And for those who take out their money early, the return is deducted to 8.25%, which is a great return given the stability of a fixed income of that percent. And their website advertises that you can invest this money through tax-free or tax-deferred accounts such as TFSA, RRSP, etc., which is great for keeping more of your returns in your pockets, inshallah. They do have a bit of a portfolio. They have successfully executed real estate projects in the past, and they are associated with much larger associations and sort of companies, so there is that security that someone is not going to run away with their money overnight. And when you visit their website, you can look at their portfolio of halal housing projects that they have executed in the past in the Durham region. So yes, it is definitely a great thing, a great feeling to provide the investments towards people having a roof over their heads, and it is something meaningful. And if you have the money, by all means, and you want to diversify into halal option near you with good exposure, halal exposure to the booming real estate market around Toronto, then Plan New Life Halal Sukuk bonds is definitely worth a look for you. Personally, for me, I've always been an equity, a stock market investor, so that's what appeals most to me, but it's up to you to do due diligence and do your own research and everything I've shared with you here. Basically, my job is just to be the messenger to share with you the information I've gathered and some of the insights I've gathered through my research. And these are really, alhamdulillah, 3 options that I really like for Canadians and for us having some sort of exposure, to halal investing, to Sharia compliant investing, be it through stock market or real estate or whatever. Please do let me know what you think of these options and anything good, any good investment, halal investment types in Canada that I have missed by putting a comment down below. And as always, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.